start. Sit your little buns.
Hello.
All right, kids. Everybody say hi. All right, so I believe we are now on the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, chapter 12, it says right there.
I've been waiting for
Now this is Peter's first battle, it says, okay? Peter's first battle. So here we go. While the dwarf and the white witch were saying this miles away, the beavers and the children were walking on hour after hour into what seemed a delicious dream. Long ago they had left their coats behind them, and by now they had even stopped saying to one another, "Look, there's a kingfisher," or "I say, bluebells," or "What was that lovely smell?" or "Just listen to that thrush." A thrush is a bird. They walked on in silence, drinking it all in, passing through patches of warm sunlight, into cool green thickets, and out again into wide mossy glades where tall elms raised the leafy roof far overhead, and then into dense masses of flowering currant and among hawthorn bushes where the sweet smell was almost overpowering. So remember the last story, what was going on? Snow, right? And then it started to melt, right? And now what's going on? It turned into spring, right?
Yeah.
Or like summer even. Okay, let's go. Okay, let's do it quick because you will get impatient. So we got to get going fast, right? Fast. Okay, here we go.
I'm going to get very impatient.
Yeah, but you better not get impatient or else I'll have your mom not bring you and you can sit out in the car with them.
They are
Yeah, but next time, don't be impatient or else. They had been just as surprised as Edmund when they saw the winter vanishing and the whole wood passing in a few hours or so from January to May. They hadn't even known for certain, as the witch did, that this was what would happen when Aslan came to Narnia, but they all knew that it was her spells which had produced the endless winter, and therefore they all knew when this magic spring began that something had gone wrong, and badly wrong, with the witch's schemes. And after the thaw had been going on for some time, they all realized that the witch would no longer be able to use her sledge. After that, they didn't hurry so much, and they allowed themselves more rest and longer ones. They were pretty tired by now, of course, but not what I'd call bitterly tired, only slow and feeling very dreamy and quiet inside, as one does when one is coming to the end of a long day in the open. Susan had a slight blister on one heel. Anybody ever have a blister before?
Oh, I had a blister.
And it hurts, right? Blisters hurt.
No,
don't they?
mine did. It was just a teensy one.
It hurts a little bit, yeah, that's all right. Now they had left the course of the river some time ago, for one had to turn a little to the right, that meant a little to the south, to reach the place of the stone table. Even if this had not been their way, they couldn't have kept to the river valley once the thaw began, for with all that melting snow, the river was soon a flood, a wonderful, roaring, thundering yellow flood, and their path would have been under the water. And now the sun got low, and the light got redder, and the shadows got longer, and the flowers began to think about closing. "Not long now," said Mr. Beaver, and they began leading them uphill across some very deep, springy moss. It felt nice under their feet, and in a place where only tall trees grew very wide apart. The climb, coming at the end of a long day, made them all pant and blow.
What does blow mean?
That's what it means. You ever walk up a hard hill and feel like, you ever feel like that? Yeah, we can all blow, that's right. And just as Lucy was wondering whether she would really get to the top without another long rest, suddenly they were at the top, and this is what they saw. They were on a green open space from which you could look down on the forest spreading as far as one could see in every direction, except right ahead. There, far to the east, was something twinkling and moving. "By gum," whispered Peter to Susan, "it's the sea." In the very middle of this open hilltop was the stone table. It was a great, grim slab of gray stone supported on 4 upright stones. It looked very old, and it was cut all over with strange lines and figures that might be the letters of an unknown language. They gave you a curious feeling when you looked at them. The next thing they saw was a pavilion pitched on one side of the open place. A wonderful pavilion it was, and especially now when the light of the setting sun fell upon it, with sides of what looked like yellow silk and cords of crimson and 10 pegs of ivory. You guys know what a pavilion is?
Like one of those horse slash human things.
It's like a tent. A pavilion is a big old tent, okay?
Oh, I know what's
And high above it, on a pole, a banner which bore a red, rampant lion fluttering in the breeze, which was blowing in their faces with the far-off sea. You guys have seen the movie about this.
Yes,
Yes.
and I totally know what is going to happen.
I think you do. While they were looking at this, they heard a sound of music on their right. Turning in that direction, they saw what they had come to see. Aslan stood in the center of a crowd of creatures who had grouped themselves around him in the shape of a half moon. There were tree women, and there were well-dressed women, and dryads and naiads, and there, as they used to be called in our world, who had stringed instruments, and they who had made music. There were 4 great centaurs. The horse part of them was like a huge English farm horse, and the main part of them was stern but beautiful giants. There was also a unicorn and a bull, with the head of a man and a pelican and an eagle and a great dog. And next to Aslan stood 2 leopards, whom one carried his crown and the other his standard. And his standard is like a flag. But as for Aslan himself, the beavers and the children didn't know what to do or say when they saw him. People who have been in Narnia sometimes think that a thing cannot be good and terrible at the same time. If the children had ever thought so, they were cured of it now, for when they looked at Aslan's face, they just caught a glimpse of the golden mane and the great royal, solemn, overwhelming eyes, and then they found they couldn't look at him and went all trembly. Go on, whispered Mr. Beaver. No, whispered Peter, you first. No, sons of Adam, before animals, whispered Mr. Beaver back again. Susan, whispered Peter, what about you? Ladies first. No, you're the oldest, whispered Susan, and of course, the longer they went on doing this, the more awkward they felt, and then at last Peter realized that it was up to him. He drew his sword and raised it in salute, and hastily saying to the others, come on, pull yourselves together. He advanced to the lion and said, we have come, Aslan. Welcome, Peter, son of Adam, said Aslan. Welcome, Susie and Lucy, daughters of Eve. Welcome, he beaver and she beaver. His voice was deep and rich, and somehow took the fidgets out of them. You guys know what a fidget is?
Like,
Want me to show you what a fidget is?
it's like
I'm going to show you right here. Just look. Look at your sister right here. She has the fidgets. She's always moving her hands, her feet. This is moving. That's the fidgets. We get the fidgets sometimes when we're bored, like she is. She's bored. And sometimes when we're nervous. All right? Like if we're really nervous and maybe a little bit afraid, it's the fidgets. We wiggle. We might pick our nose if we're not thinking about it and embarrass ourselves.
I'm picking right now.
Okay, see? So she's got the fidgets, right? All right, so there you go. That's the fidgets. Well, they seen Aslan, and guess what? They got the fidgets, okay? And that's what happened to them. All right. Well, but where is the 4th, asked Aslan. The 4th what? The 4th child, right?
yeah.
Yeah, where's the 4th child? He has tried to betray them and join the White Witch, O Aslan, said Mr. Beaver, and then something made Peter say, that was partly my fault, Aslan. I was angry with him, and I think that helped him to go wrong. And Aslan said nothing either to excuse Peter or to blame him, but merely stood looking at him with his great unchanging eyes, and it seemed to all of them that there was nothing to be said. Please, Aslan, said Lucy, can anything be done to save Edmund? All shall be done, said Aslan, but it may be harder than you think. And then he was silent again for some time. Up to that moment, Lucy had been thinking how royal and strong and beautiful his face looked. Now it came suddenly to her head that he looked sad as well. But in the next minute, that expression was quite gone. The lion shook his mane and clapped his paws together. Terrible paws, thought Lucy, if he didn't know how to velvet them, and said, meanwhile, let the feast be prepared. Ladies, take these daughters of Eve to the pavilion and minister to them. When the girls had gone, Aslan laid his paw, though it was velveted and very heavy, on Peter's shoulder and said, you know what velveted means?
No.
Soft. So it has claws, but it's got soft in the middle. Do you ever feel a cat's paws? In the middle it's soft, right?
We've never had a cat.
But you felt a cat's paws, right?
I don't think.
He's got a cat.
Well, I don't have one,
But his
I
neighbor
go around them a lot.
So you can feel it
But
on
his
there.
neighbor has a
It's
cat.
soft in the middle and it's pokey on the outside, right? That's kind of how it is.
Well, like you
Well, but if you can imagine a paw that's this big, like Aslan's, and he puts it on Peter's shoulder, ooh, boom, like this, but it's big like this, right? It's huge. And you're afraid because the claws are really long, but it's soft in the middle, right? Wouldn't that be scary?
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I got very scared.
It would be pretty scary.
In fact, I'm not scared.
Okay, all shall be done. Anyway, when the girls had gone, Aslan laid his paw, though it was velvet and very heavy, on Peter's shoulder and said, "Come, son of Adam, and I will show you a far-off sight, the castle where you shall be king." And Peter, with his sword still drawn in his hand, went to the lion to the eastern edge of a hilltop, where a beautiful sight met his eyes. The sun was setting behind their backs, and that meant that the whole country below them lay in the evening light, forest and hills and valleys, and winding away like a silver snake the lower part of the great river, and beyond all this, miles away, was the sea. And beyond the sea, the sky, full of clouds, which were just turning rose color with the reflection of the sunset. And just where the land of Narnia met the sea, in fact, at the mouth of the great river, there was something on a little hill shining. It was shining because it was a castle, and of course the sunlight was reflecting from all the windows, which looked toward Peter and the sunset. But to Peter it looked like a great star rising on the seashore. "That, O man," said Aslan, "is Cair Paravel of the four thrones, in one of which you must sit as king. I show it to you because you are the firstborn, and you shall be high king over all the rest." And once more Peter said nothing, for at that moment a strange noise woke the silence suddenly. It was like a bugle, but richer. "It is your sister's horn," said Aslan to Peter in a low voice, so low as to almost be a purr. If it is not disrespectful to think of a lion purring, can you imagine a cat that has feet this big around purring?
That's my favorite.
What kind of purr would that be? It'd be a boom, 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 boom kind of a sound, wouldn't it? Yeah, because cats purr really fast, but a big animal would purr slowly, right? Sit down there, son. For a moment, Peter did not understand. Then he saw all the other creatures start forward, and he heard Aslan say with a wave of his paw, "Back! Let the prince win his spurs." He did understand and set off running as hard as he could to the pavilion, and there he saw a dreadful sight.
Spider! White witch!
Smack it. Kill it. There you go. All right.
Ah! Still alive!
Kill it. Good. You got it. Spider dead. One spider down. All right? So Ellie is getting her spurs too, okay? Sit back, sit back, sit back. Okay, let's get this finished. All right, so what do you think they saw? A bad sight. What was it?
White
White witch.
Well, it may have been the White Witch, but it was certainly all of her people coming on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the Naiads and the Dryads were scattering in every direction. Lucy was running towards him as fast as her short legs would carry her, and her face was as white as paper. Because you know how old Lucy was?
9.
About Ellie's age.
No, at that time she was about 9.
Now, Lucy was the younger one, right?
I know, but she was older than Jesslyn.
I don't think she was older.
Yeah,
than
she
Jessamine.
was. They wouldn't give her.
Well, maybe it's different in the
Maybe
book.
it's different in the book than the movie. Could you believe that?
In the movie, she was like.
Because she has short legs.
I know. Maybe she was like Tyler.
Tyler, do you have short legs?
Yeah.
He doesn't have short legs.
Yeah, he does.
But Ellie
He
has
was
short
like 2.5
legs.
feet
This
tall.
guy has short legs too.
I do.
All right, let's keep reading. All right. At first, Peter thought it was a bear. When he saw it, it looked like an Alsatian, though it was far too big to be a dog. Then he realized it was a wolf. A wolf standing on its hind legs with his front paws against a tree trunk, snapping and snarling. All the hair on his back stood up on end, and Susan had not been able to get higher than the second big branch. One of her legs hung down so that her foot was only an inch or two above the snapping teeth. Peter wondered why she did not get higher, or at least take a better grip. Then he realized that she was just going to faint, and that if she fainted, she would fall off, and the wolf would eat her, right? Peter did not feel very brave. Indeed, he felt he was going to be sick, but that made no difference to what he had to do. He rushed straight up to the monster and aimed a slash of his sword at its side. The stroke never reached the wolf. Quick as lightning, it turned around, its eyes flaming and its mouth wide open in a howl of anger. If it had not been so angry that it simply had to howl, it would have got him with a throat at once. As it was, though, all this happened too quickly for Peter to think about it at all. He had just time to duck down and plunge his sword as hard as he could between the brute's forelegs into its heart, and then came a horrible, confused moment, something like a nightmare. He was tugging and pulling, and the wolf seemed neither alive nor dead. Its bare teeth knocked against his forehead, and everything was blood and heat and hair. A moment later, he found that the monster lay dead, and he had drawn his sword out of it, and was straightening his back and rubbing the sweat off his face, and out of his eyes he felt tired all over. Then after a bit, Susan came down from the tree. She and Peter felt pretty shaky when they met, and I won't say there wasn't kissing and crying on both sides, but in Narnia, nobody thinks any worse of you for that. Around here, kissing and crying, people might make fun of you if you were kissing and crying, right? But in Narnia, it's okay. That's what it means. It's okay to kiss and cry.
Kissing.
Don't you cry sometimes when you're sad? And do people tease you sometimes about it? Well, in Narnia, it's okay to cry. Nobody would tease you in Narnia for crying. And kissing is also okay. Yeah, you do. Me too. Me too. Quick, quick, shouted the voice of Aslan. Centaurs, eagles. I see another wolf in the thickets, there behind you. He has just darted away. After him, all of you. He will be going to his mistress. Now is your chance to find the witch and rescue the fourth son of Adam. And instantly, with a thunder of hooves and a beating of wings, a dozen or so of the swiftest creatures disappeared into the gathering darkness. Peter, still out of breath, turned and saw Aslan close at hand. You have forgotten to clean your sword, said Aslan. It was true. Peter blushed, and then he looked at the bright blade and saw it all smeared with the wolf's hair and blood. He stooped down and wiped it quite clean on the grass, and then wiped it quite dry on his coat. Hand it to me, and kneel, son of Adam, said Aslan. And when Peter had done so, he struck him with the flat of the blade and said, Rise up, Sir Peter, Wolfsbane. You know what that means?
No.
The wolf killer is what it means. And whatever happens, never forget to wipe your sword. Because you don't want it to get rusty, right?
No.
You don't want your sword to be rusty.
You can't wipe it in battle.
Well, you can't wipe it in battle, but you sure can afterwards. You just did it. We're already done now. Check it out. Can you shut that off for me, Tyler, please? Thank you very much. All right, kids, we did good, didn't we? All right, Tyler's going to shut that off.
Bye.